Good morning, Peter Heyneman. I'd like to welcome you to the RevAmp podcast series. We're really happy to have you aboard. We'd love to learn from you today about what you're doing inside the world of revenue operations. For those of you that don't already know you, just tell us a little bit about what your role is, who you're working for, and perhaps a little bit about what your company does.
Sure. So I'm the director of RevOps. I have a crew of some enablement, operations folks, Salesforce admins,
Mhm.
and being in RevOps, we're responsible for everything from marketing operations to customer success operations, post-sale operations. I work for our president and COO. Our business is we're a RevOps platform that enables everything from guided selling to AI automation of like Salesforce updates to forecasting to being a sales BI tool. So that's what we do, and I've been there about a little more than a year and a half.
Fantastic. So your company is InsightSquared, right?
That's right. Yep.
Fantastic. So, Peter, as I was doing a bit of research, as I like to do, the good journalist inside of me before every show, I discovered that you actually had a background in writing originally, and perhaps that was the birth of your career transition into ops. What happened there?
Yeah, it's funny. I always say that a lot of people know what they're going to do and go right for a sales ops role, but I feel like a lot of people who are in sales ops kind of wandered their way into it and realized it was perfect for them. That's kind of what happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
I got a graduate degree in writing and loved writing, but wasn't the right fit for being a professor. And was kind of the most operationally minded person on a team of distance educators, distance ed company, and got the chance to enter the business world, working for a little startup within AOL called Patch that then blew up very quickly,
Mm-hmm.
and wore a bunch of different hats throughout the course of that kind of wild ride, and because of that, got to work with salespeople. Realized that was really my bread and butter. I'm the kind of person who will find a more efficient way to load a dishwasher, so that's just naturally, once I realized that, hey, this is a career, just helping salespeople to be more efficient and be more.
I've met that person. My father-in-law is also that person and has given me a few lessons on the most efficient way to load a dishwasher. He's an engineer by trade, so he looked at the manual and looked at the flow of the water and all of that.
That's funny.
I never thought
That's what an engineer does it. That's what an engineer does it. A salesperson, we just watch people load it and do it wrong, and we take all that data and we say, okay, I've optimized the way that other people are working, and I'm going to cover them.
That is funny. So Peter, I know back around Q4 2019, you kind of focused on your central project. The big piece around customer retention was top of your list. And from previous conversations, you said essentially it was a move from reactive planning and execution over to proactive. And obviously that brought implications for team members. Perhaps before we go into the bits and bytes, can you just set out the stall of what the context, what was the challenge at that time? What was the context of it? What were you facing?
Yeah, like a lot of organizations, we had a customer success team and group that were set up to help customers and to react to their needs,
Mm-hmm.
but not to like CS. Customer success is a relatively new term. It's a relatively new kind of concept in the world, and a lot of other companies have AEs fulfilling kind of like a full funnel relationship with their with their customers. But we had kind of taken a step towards it, but we hadn't fully realized it, right? We had customer success people who were reacting to problems and were very well versed in the tool, and a great crew of folks and doing their best, but they hadn't really been empowered with technology and processes and enablement
Mm-hmm.
to act more proactively as truly as salespeople, right? I mean, and in order to have a clearer division of labor and to be more efficient, we realized we weren't going to be able to snap our fingers and create the team we wanted, so we had to put a plan in place
Okay.
to move them.
And what did that plan, first of all, before you tell me about the plan, what was the North Star in terms of the KPI of what you wanted to achieve? Like, what was the KPI? What was the North Star? What was the success criteria or recognition for this project specifically?
Yeah, I think that the number one goal that we have, that I think every SaaS company should have, is positive churn on their customers. That they start every year with a number, a revenue number coming from their group of customers that's bigger than the year before.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in order to get that, have that happen. Like obviously you have to have a product that works really well and that everyone really enjoys, but then also you also have to have a sales organization working with customers who is not just looking to help customers who have problems or concerns, which is obviously an important part of any customer oriented organization.
Mm-hmm.
But you also they have to be looking for opportunities to say, let's expand our engagement, or hey, you seem to be having an issue before you've even told me about it. How can I help? How can I help you get more success with
That's clear. I understand that. So that's the North Star, or the direction that you're moving to. So do you remember now, or can you share with me, what was the fundamental building blocks? What was step one when you were structuring that project?
Yeah, step one is to envision that end state, right? Where do we need to go? Where do we need to be 18 months from now? How do we, what does that role look like? Mm-hmm. Then everything kind of falls out from there. And then once we have that vision, then we have to have more realistic steps to get there. Because again, you can't just snap your fingers and say, all of you are going to behave differently starting today without any, without a whole bunch of building blocks in place. But the building blocks to get to that end state that I described, where they fully own the expansion, relation to conversations. They own the commercial conversations. They also really understand every single one of their customers, and they're kind of at the center of like a web of information about how their customers are doing, that they're able to say, oh, this customer has a problem, or oh, this customer has a need that we can help fulfill by giving them more different products. In order to get there, we had to change their role, meaning like their goals and compensation. You have to change their tech stack, and then you have to change their processes.
Did you also need other line of business units outside of direct CM to also buy into this process and re-understand the role? Was there any of that evangelism that had to happen?
Absolutely. And so absolutely you have to, but at that time you have to get, well, there's some conversations you have to have with your post-sales support and service organization, where they have to understand that that that's going to require more bandwidth from them to help be more, to deal with more of the reactive issues, the customer training issues, or hey, this thing is broken, how can someone fix it? That needs to be less of a customer success person's day. On the sales side, they need to understand that that eventually then you're going to be sensitive about that transition. Eventually they're going to be less responsible for expansion revenue and for working with customers to have upsells and cross-sells and things like that, and that instead they're going to have more time and more more of a goal based on just finding new business.
So you just raised a really important and interesting point there. So you're saying, as a consequence of the CSM role taking more ownership proactively, the sales team had less burden on them in terms of being responsible for the expansion of those existing accounts. How is that so? How does that dynamic shift take place? What is fundamentally different before and after?
You have to do in stages again, like because your customer success org has to start behaving like a sales org, so they have to start having the same kind of training and understanding of how discovery works and all the other things that I think are not necessarily ingrained into a CS, CS reps.
So is that
repertoire? Yeah.
That makes sense. Does that leads me into then, is that reflected in your tech stack? I mean, what are the core tools that you would need to have in place to enable your CSM team to function in that kind of new evolved way?
Yeah, that's right. We didn't, when we started this process, we didn't have a very well realized tech stack for that team to allow them to behave proactively. So
okay.
We had to empower them in the same way that we've armed our sales reps with a wide variety of tools. That includes sales engagement tools like Outreach, where they can set up sequences and be able to more efficiently manage setting up meetings and other things like that, that Outreach can do. We had to have a better CPQ tool. We installed DealHub so that they could be more flexible with setting up, the much more expanded set of types of opportunities and product offerings that we wanted to empower them to do. We needed the kind of customer journey management and flagging system. So we had Gainsight, but it really wasn't very well used. Like we didn't fully have Gainsight, which is kind of a CRM tool just for customers that works in Salesforce, but it also has all kinds of calls to action based on the customer's activity, and it includes they have a tool called PX that plugs into our own product and sees like how the customer is, how different personas are using the tool, how often they're logging in, what they're looking at, just in order to flag potential issues or look at potential expansion opportunities. They're like, oh, they're often doing this. That makes to think if they had this new tool, that's part of our suite, they would be able to get even, be even more efficient.
So because from the description you gave at the beginning of this interview, you mentioned quite a few different facets of InsightSquared. Did you find that a number of your customers actually had low adoption of the full suite? Like they were only using a slice of what was open and available to them? Was that revealed? Did that change? Was there any kind of catalyst for change?
Yeah, that's definitely been part of it, is that realizing, and not just and also specific personas, because like our key persona is the head of sales, right? Our key user. We also have a lot of sales operations users, folks like me, who are helping to kind of manage the tool. But if like they could, we realize that we have these particular personas that we need to make sure are both engaged with the tool and engaged the right part of the tool. So yeah, like you said, they're not using a particular part of it. Or if they're using one aspect of it where there's a different solution that might involve an expansion opportunity, we could get a hold of them and say, it looks like you're trying to do this with what you currently have. Have you considered, all of these new products that we have that could potentially solve this problem? And so then that wasn't happening at all. There was none of that kind of proactive engagement yet. So
okay. So 5 to 6 months into this major project, COVID-19 more or less happens. Did that change the game for you?
It accelerated it, I think, so that like our 18-month horizon became sort of like ASAP.
Okay.
I mean, we're still executing against the plan, but immediately as soon as this happened, we realized we had to have engagement with every single one of our customers to find out just how they're doing. Like we needed to accelerate the timeline on finding ways to discover both directly and indirectly what's happening with our customers. What are they doing in our own product, and then what's happening in the world. Yeah, absolutely. It definitely accelerated that timeline, massively.
And then have you been able to use your own technology or tool to support the CSM process? Is that plugged in and been a part of it?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't be doing it right if we weren't eating our own dog food, for sure. But I think the biggest thing is just that big aspect of our product suite is forecasting.
Okay.
And we weren't really fully having, having CSMs do their own kind of forecasting that then rolls up to the director of CSM, that rolls up to our president, so that we could have a 1 to 2 quarter forecast. And at this point now, we're able to have a pretty reliable and accurate 2 quarter out forecast of our retention and expansion numbers that allow us to, make plays and, have make plans that are pretty reliable and realistic.
I'm sure that's huge for executive team members to know 2 quarters in advance what they can expect financially, how they can plan for that, who they can keep in their job role, worst case scenario. Unfortunately,
Right.
for a lot of companies, that's a very real scenario right now. So I can only imagine how powerful and important that has been. If you were to then summarize for us the learning curve over the last 9 months, what are the key standout insights that you've gained from this? Perhaps what you've done well, what has been different than what you expected?
Yeah, I think we've done well to focus on enablement, to have to both technology wise, but also a lot of times, we're a pretty small company. We don't have a lot of enablement resources in house, so we've been able to budget and find budget and time and energy to have training for the CSMs available. I think that's been that's that kind of thing that has a long tail of success. You don't immediately, when you train them about negotiation or discovery or other important aspects of the sales process to make them more knowledgeable and more creative salespeople. Takes a little while for that to kind of catch up and sink in, but it's really they're a great team and very flexible, and they've really been learning quickly. The other big takeaway I think is just that COVID taught us more than anything else is you have to then be flexible with your customers, and the more you give, more control you give, the more ability you give to your CSM team, the more they're able to act as the quarterbacks, not relying on a finance or a salesperson, an AE or anyone else to sort of understand what customer needs and come up with a proposal to say, okay, this customer needs to get rid of these products and change these products and extend these, change their renewal date, or just be able to act as the leader on what their customer needs is really a huge. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of work. It also takes a lot of making sure that everyone's bought in. Again, from finance to sales to support to everyone else. But if you're able to invest in that, that's really what you want.
Peter, fantastic. You've been an amazing guest. Shared a lot of a great wealth of experience with us. Appreciate it, and we look forward to sharing this podcast with the wider world in the very near future. So thank you so much, Peter, and wishing you continued and ongoing success.
Thank you, again. It's been fun.